Okay, so I didn't get through all of August in the last video because I was running up to the 15-minute mark, which is I don't know how they determine why you can vote. You can have 15-minute videos, but whatever, 15 minutes is pretty good actually. So for August of 2011, the last book I read, the last book or graphic novel was House of Mystery Volume 1, Room and Boredom, and that is a continuing series. At least I assume it is. I don't know if it's something that they have an ultimate thing for. It's a Vertigo title, which is a imprint of DC Comics, and it's frankly the Vertigo line by and large is a superior quality of comics. I don't really read very many superhero comics, so I'm biased, but I just think that a lot of the way that those series are written is better because they have a beginning, middle, and end when they write it initially. They're not just drawing it out as long as possible. There are a few series that I've been doing in that line that have a fairly long history to them, Fables being the most notable, which is in the 100 now, which means it's been going for, good grief, like almost 10 years, which is pretty remarkable. And so yes, House of Mystery Volume 1, that's interesting. I bring up Bill Willingham, who writes Fables. Bill Willingham and Matthew Sturges wrote that. Matthew Sturges, I don't know what else he's worked on, but I mostly know him because he wrote for the Jack of Fables side story that was 50 issues, and I can sort of see his kind of imprint in this one. It's got sort of a dark, sort of a sarcastic bent to it, but I think that it is sort of improved by Bill Willingham. I don't know how much Bill Willingham has to do with the continuing series. I want to say that he might have just written one story in this, because this is a bunch of short stories that are all part of a larger one. It is about this girl who, at the beginning, is trying to escape from some people, and she somehow winds up in this weird house called the House of Mystery that it seems is inhabited by dead people and by just weird random travelers, and it's this weird kind of way station or limbo that people can't really escape from. So the ongoing series is kind of trying to figure out what the rules are of the House of Mystery, and this main character, whose name I don't remember, trying to escape from there. So yeah, that was an interesting series. There's one early story in that that's pretty horrible. It's illustrated by not Ross Collins, I don't remember his name, but he did another graphic novel called Water Baby that's about this girl who gets her leg bitten off by a shark, and she has these weird nightmare dream fantasies about the shark that's sort of like supposed to be her lover or her boyfriend or something. Weird stuff. So he did the really disturbing story, and you could pretty much skip that story if you wanted to. I don't remember the name of it, but it's one of the earlier ones, and you can skip past that, and probably you're not going to be negatively affected, because it's one of the characters that's in the House of Mystery, but she's not one of the main characters. She's a side character. So, yeah, there's that, and that was all of August, and then in September I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Holy cow, 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8 books. And the first one I read was Pathfinder by Orson Scott Card. I don't know how this is, but somehow people don't know him by now, and I feel like he's well known enough that people should know his name. He's most well known for the Ender's Game series, but he did another series that was a strange kind of science fiction reinterpretation of the Book of Mormon, because he is an LDS person. But this is another sort of science fiction fantasy book that he wrote. It's a young adult novel, and I think there's supposed to be a sequel to it, because things are certainly not resolved at the end of it. But a lot of it deals with kind of time travel, and with, like, logic, and with quantum mechanics a little bit. And I think that when he gets with scientific ideas, he has very solid footing. What very much frustrates me with Orson Scott Card, though, is that far too many of his characters are they just increasingly have become avatars of Orson Scott Card. So they say and act and think things that Orson Scott Card seems to espouse. And that makes sense, you know, in as far as it's very difficult for an author to get away from writing characters that are going to be some aspect of them. They're either going to be like the total opposite of them, or they're going to be fairly similar to them. But just Orson Scott Card's worldview gets very tiresome if you've read a lot of his stuff, which is just real people who've gone through real difficult things, are very honest and forthright, and they're real people, and they're really crass, and they're not embarrassed by, like, violence or by sexuality or bodily functions or anything like that. He's a little bit like Jonathan Swift in that way. So it gets a little bit preachy and tiresome, but he's a great writer, actually. So trepidatiously, I could recommend that book. After that, I read Scalped Volume 3. I think I mentioned Scalped way back at the beginning of the year. Oh my goodness, no, it was back in July. So I had started reading that back in July for the graphic novel book club with my local library, and I liked it well enough that I wanted to continue reading it, and because it's a graphic novel, it's pretty easy to get through, even if it's sort of a difficult story to follow, and that's not that difficult to follow. Volume 3 is Dead Mothers. Again, the authors are Jason Aaron and R.M. Guera, and that largely deals with Dashiell Bad Horse's mother, and I'm wondering how much I can give away. No, I'm not going to give away a key plot point in those first 2 volumes, but him growing up and having this really difficult relationship with his mother, and his mother coming from this really strong activist perspective, and how she changed from that into being still an activist, but she had this significant falling out with Red Crow, who's the presumptive leader in that area. There's still the rest of the tribal leaders in the reservation that he needs to answer to, but he holds a whole lot of sway, and a lot of that is because he's a gangster and he's got a bunch of people, a bunch of thugs behind him who can help enforce whatever he's trying to do. So there's that relationship. There's this other character, Grandma Pooh Bear, who is sort of this matronly figure that takes care a lot of the characters in the reservation, and seems to be someone who understands the difficulties that the characters are going through, but doesn't put up with people. You know, she knows what people need to be doing and what they're not supposed to be doing, and she has this ability to see people's spirit animals, which sort of gives an insight into their destiny, what they're fated to do. And most of the characters she looks at, it seems like they're kind of doomed, frankly. So there's that character. They go a little bit more into the character of Nitz, I think, is the FBI agent who's working with Ashiel to try and pin a murder on Red Crow, because he's got this long-standing grievance with pretty much everyone in the reservation, but especially Red Crow and Gina Bad Horse, who is Dash's mother. And that is what I remember from that off the top of my head. After that, I read Naked Pictures of Famous People by Jon Stewart. It's, I guess you could call it a series of stand-up bits, almost. They're like short comedic essays. I borrowed that from my girlfriend, and you read that, and then you see a lot of the type of bits that he does on The Daily Show, and it's very much of a piece, where he says, I can just imagine, blah, 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 or like, he'll pretend like he's interviewing this and that person, and, you know, he does different impressions of people, but it's basically these weird